You know we're going into closed session.
Good evening, everyone. I call the meeting of the Crestwood Board of Education study session to order at 5:34. And we're going to forego the pledge until we do our regular meeting. Mrs. Janoon, can you do roll call, please?
Yes. Mrs. Berry? We can't hear her, but Mrs. Berry needs to state where she's at.
She's muted.
Are you muted?
You're still muted.
Can't
We
hear you,
cannot hear
Maria.
you. We can't hear you.
Right. Can't hear you. Talk again? No. Thought I could hear her.
Excuse us while we work on some technical difficulties.
Well, can I continue with the roll call with everybody else?
Yes.
Okay, so Mrs. Elzayat is absent. Mrs. Fawaz? Here. Mr. Garcia is absent. Myself, I'm here. Ms. Kaminsky?
Here.
Mr. Sabah?
Here.
Mrs. Chair, you do have a quorum, but we're gonna wait until we work through that. No.
Thanks, Mrs. Janoon. I feel like we should have background music.
Yeah. I think she's gonna try calling in right now. Probably can't hear it. Yeah, this is saying it.
Showing her calling in.
She's saying she can hear us just fine. We're good at reading lips, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Addie, did you wanna, were we trying to have her call in?
We called it again.
Oh. She's gonna log out and log back in, right? I don't know.
Hi there.
Can't get it to turn back on.
No, we can't hear you at all. Okay, yep, thank you.
There we go.
David, she's, logging out and gonna log right back in.
Do we have to wait, or
Yeah, we do, we have to.
can we count her as absent right now and then move on, and then?
We still have a quorum with four,
Right, that's
so
why
we
I'm
might as well
saying-
continue.
That's what I'm saying, what
Okay.
do we continue and?
That's up
Okay,
to you.
totally up to you.
Go
Sue.
ahead, CFO updates.
Yeah,
Oh.
I say we continue, and then,
We'll
okay,
get
she
her
gets
in.
on, she gets on.
So I just have a couple updates regarding the flood. The Okay. Okay, that scared me, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So with the flood, the gym floor has been abated, so the wood for the flooring should be delivered this week, so that should be starting this week, as long as the cement has dried to 7% of moisture within the cement. The weight room floor is being tiled. It should be finished either today or tomorrow, and then the mats can be put in and the equipment be put back. The auditorium stage is being worked on, so we have to replace all of that. The classrooms, the childcare classroom has been retiled, so there is one room left to retile in the high school, and that's room 403. It was the special ed room back in the corner of the building. Trying to think. The transformer bid is due tomorrow, so I'll have those bids in tomorrow, and we'll have results of that bid tomorrow. That closes at 2 o'clock, and I should have those come in tomorrow. And then I can share with Dr. Masalam, and we can make a decision on which way to go with that. The generator bid has come in, so we're evaluating that, and we may make a decision on that within the next couple days so that we can get that ordered. We'll have Dr. Masalam sign off on it, and we'll go ahead and order it. And then the camera bids are in. Mr. Green is going through those bids and evaluating the companies. And I think that's it for the moment.
Boilers?
Well, the boilers, I didn't check, they were supposed to be delivered today, and I did not check if they were delivered today. So, they should be coming in within this week.
How long does it take to install those, do you know?
The boilers with
Mhm.
a couple weeks.
Okay.
Yep.
Couple questions.
Yes, go ahead.
The transformer bid, I don't know, I know last time we had one.
Yes.
And have you looked to see how many bids we've gotten?
They'll be coming in tomorrow.
So you
I won't get
can't-
them till tomorrow.
You can't see if there's any, okay,
Yeah, they'll turn them in tomorrow.
all right, perfect. The
Yep.
other question is, really crazy question. Why are we tiling the floor of the weight room when we're gonna put rubber over it?
Because if for whatever reason that room turns into something else besides a weight room, there still needs to be tile underneath of it. There was tile before, it happened to be asbestos tile, so all that was removed.
Okay.
So it was abated, and then that way, to have cement, there should be something layered under the rubber mats.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, question.
Go ahead.
So generator bid, you said is in, and is that coming back to us to discuss like the pricing you said, or you guys are just gonna make a decision?
So my recommendation is gonna be, once we look at it and we make a determination with all parties that are involved in it on who we'd like to go with, I will be
Yeah.
making a special request to the board to allow us to move forward
Okay,
and then approve retroactively, because we want to get that in ASAP.
okay.
Okay.
But nothing will be done without the board's awareness and
Okay.
or follow-up questions from the board.
Where are we putting the generator? Have we decided? Where?
Yes, it'll go in the courtyard at the high school behind, if you go into the library and you look out that library, there's that courtyard in there, it'll go in there.
So we can move this thing later if we need to?
No,
We cannot?
no.
Okay. So is
They're
there-
going to actually have to lift it in and over the building.
So if we decided we wanted to move the IT to a different building in the future, because this is really the support for the IT system, right?
Yes.
The generator.
The phones and the IT system, yes.
So if we decided in the future we wanted to move that,
It would be costly to move.
Yeah, that is true.
I mean,
they
it's
use
not
a crane.
impossible, it's not
Well, I
impossible
was
to
just-
move, but it is
yeah.
costly to move.
I was
that
under,
was-
was under the impression we were thinking about
Yeah.
putting it into,
Well, that project won't be done, that whole project won't be done for at least another maybe good year, year and a half.
Yeah.
So the concern is if we don't do this now, and we have another outage, we're gonna lose all of our functionality again.
my concern is the floods. I mean, I hate to say it, but, you know, that room was affected.
Yeah.
And
No, the
Mr.
library was
Nguyen?
not affected.
The
I mean,
library
it
wasn't, but-
It was affected slightly. The courtyard between the library was minimal.
So it's gonna be elevated, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. And we're gonna put like a nice fence around it.
Nadia, I think we can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
We can
Sorry.
hear- We can hear you now.
I did have a couple of questions, if it's okay.
Mrs. Janoon
Can you hear
had
me?
one, Mrs. Janoon had one first, and then you.
Actually, I
Okay.
totally forgot.
Thank you.
Oh, never mind, go ahead.
You were talking about the boilers, Penny?
Yes.
Okay, are those comparable to what they are replacing? We want to make sure that we're getting what we have there, because I know with the bond, we spent a lot of money on those, that they didn't give us something that wasn't compatible, product-wise, efficiency-wise and all that.
Correct. And we're
Do we know?
making sure,
We didn't do boilers for the bond? No. Did we
I'm
do
sorry.
boilers for the bond?
once they arrive, we can able to verify that it's identical, but until I see them, we won't be able to identify that they're identical. But
Okay.
we do want to make sure that we're getting our equal product to what we had
Okay.
currently.
Mrs. Chair.
Okay, can we, make sure, is Scott there? Can he make sure to follow up on that? Is he,
I will make sure that I follow up with the company tomorrow. I'll call the Midpoint and verify.
If I may
okay, and
add,
can we get an update?
if I may add, and we will double check, but I'm under the assumption that when the team gave the recommendations to the insurance company, they spec'd everything out. So I mean, I didn't ask for anything specific from the team over at the high school, but we can get that specific information.
When they took the boiler information, they did take the codes and they took pictures of what we currently have, so they're aware of what we have, and they took the serial numbers and the product numbers.
Okay, just to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples and we don't get, we want to make sure we're getting our warranties because that stuff was fairly new.
Of course.
Just to make sure that we're safe. I didn't hear everything that you guys discussed, but, I have another question if it's okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, my question goes back to train. Penny, you put in the last, I think, I forgot to ask this, in the last update, you said something about that, you had to okay some phalanges with the toilet. I don't have the information in front of me, but can you give us an update on that?
Correct. What happened is that because of the age of our buildings, and some of our buildings are not on cement slabs, when they were replacing the toilets, the piping going down into the pipe that's distributed into the ground, the connection flange basically disintegrated. And so they had anticipated about 10% replacement. Unfortunately, that's been more than 10% on those buildings. And so in order to effectively install the toilets, we needed to add those flanges. The toilets cannot be installed with the flanges.
Okay, so then my question would be, how is Train handling that? Does that all fall on us? Because I clearly remember asking at a board meeting, my exact words, because of the bond, that we learned a lot and we didn't want no hidden surprises. And I remember, what's his name? I know it was Gwen and, I think his name was Ed, maybe? Was that his name, or Ali?
I think.
Ali was one of them,
Anyhow,
and Ed was
I
another.
remember,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry?
Ed was one and Ali was another.
Okay, and I remember how he said that he was trying to assure us that this was a turnkey process, that we wouldn't have these extra costs, because that was a huge concern of mine. So that is bothersome to me, so actually I think that they should come and present to us, because I don't want no more hidden agendas on their part. They need to come and explain themselves to us, because if we need to pull this contract, look at it again, and hold them accountable, because they said that there were no hidden surprises, and to me, that's huge. That's a huge hidden surprise.
So, Madam President, if I may,
Go ahead.
or Madam Vice President, my apologies. So, President Barry, Yes, there are not supposed to be any surprises in reference to the scope of the work. So when they submitted to us the energy work that they needed to do, that was purely based on the infrastructure that they did see. In reference to these phalanges, these are elements that it's not directly tied to the energy work, but in order for those toilets to be water efficient, which is part of the energy bond, all of the phalanges are old and deteriorated, which is a cost on our end, but it would not have been found unless we pulled all those toilets out. So the one way to keep in mind with this energy bond is it's very similar to, when you do construction on a home or something where you want to remodel your kitchen, but when they tear out the walls and they see that your plumbing has leaks, that's an additional cost. So any additional costs that we're going to face as a district are going to be costs that are not directly tied to the energy bond, but will indirectly impact the energy bond of items that we didn't know were an issue. So that's why I'm stating, if they never pulled out these toilets, then we would have never known that these phalanges were deteriorating and or busted, and that could have caused a problem down the line, and that's part of the process. We are scheduling and we are preparing to have Train come and present on a bi-monthly basis, and we're finalizing that. They just had discussions so that there is a continuous update from Train and not just from us on the work that's being done in relationship to the scope of the energy bond. I hope that answers your question.
Well, then, my next question then would be, what other surprises are we gonna have? Because this is concerning. Are they gonna find other things that we're gonna hit hard with? I know that change orders, I think that we need to be part of the change order process then, because I want them to think that we're going to just keep okaying everything without us discussing it as a board.
So
I'm afraid of what's coming ahead.
If we're gonna-
Because if they're doing, we're finding now, they might find other things, so we need to really talk about this, because if it's gonna cost us way more than we're expecting, then we need to think this through. Or discuss it to see what we can do.
So if I may respond to that in a functionality aspect. If we want all change orders to come to the board prior to the administration and the operations team approving them to move forward, then we're gonna slow this process down exponentially. I'm asking that, we will always keep you apprised of any changes, and I'm just asking that the board keep that in consideration, because that's why we have our operations team. That's why it trickles from Train to the operations team to Penny to me. But if we want to add a process where all change orders are approved, I just want the board to be aware that's going to slow this work down. And I will say this, there will be other things that will come up. We have aging buildings, and the whole purpose of this energy bond is to cover the vast majority of the costs of improving our energy costs and our energy infrastructure. And that's going to create situations where there may be other things that are going to come up. And the one thing I can assure the board is that nothing is being approved on a whims. Now, you bring up the previous bond. The previous bond, no one was overseeing the previous bond. With this, we have a team of people that are overseeing every single aspect of the work, and we're sharing that with you in real time. So I would like you just to keep that in mind as well.
And maybe, if I can, Mrs. Berry, maybe we can come up with a dollar amount for change orders or something. I will say that because my husband is a licensed plumber, that these flanges deteriorating could be part of the backups we've had in some of the bathrooms where they've had to come and snake down the drains. In the bathrooms, particularly, I know 2 of the girls' bathrooms were ones that flooded a lot.
Yeah, last year.
And that is frankly one of the things that my husband has found, is if that breaks down, then it goes into the pipes and eventually blocks it. So attributed it to the kids throwing things down the toilets that they shouldn't, too much paper, the hand paper for wiping their hands. It could be some of this was the flanges. And I'm sorry, I
No, no,
interrupted
it's okay.
Mrs. Janoon.
So I just was wondering, were any of the toilets changed in the last bond, or was this just, and then are we changing literally every single toilet in the building?
Some-
Or every single toilet and then flange in?
Some of the
in
toilets
building?
were changed, but not all of them, so we are changing the older ones in the buildings. So the
I think there was like
majority
a
of them, I
40.
believe there was about 60 toilets district-wide that we were changing. Right now, as the count is, we're at 32 phalanges that we needed replaced, which is $4,960.
And that's in, well. so-
That's just a rough estimate. They're
Right.
supposed to have a finalized number for me by the end of the week.
Right, so I know like the actual part is not costly, it's the labor, so is it trained, and I think that this is where I can understand where Mrs. Berry's saying is that the parts is not, so if they're gonna find new things that need to be, be up, but if we have our employees overseeing that, then I'm gonna put the trust in them, that they're double checking to make sure that they're not just creating more work than what needs to be done, so.
Mr. Sabah?
I mean, the alternative is just to leave things alone. I mean, if we're finding things, you gotta fix them.
Right.
I mean, this is a part of what you guys, we voted on with this entirety.
Right,
So things are gonna come up, and obviously they're gonna be costly, but
right.
sometimes when you open the hood, you find things that you weren't expecting, and you can't just turn an eye. You can't unsee what you've seen. So if you don't fix them, it's gonna create bigger problems later, even when this project's done. So,
But
you know,
that
I understand that the change orders, and I understand a dollar amount. I think, that's something to be discussed, but I think to Dr. Masalam's point, this is just gonna slow the entire process down. As you find things, you fix them. And, hopefully it's not in the thousands of dollars when they're finding these things. Those things should be addressed to the board.
Right.
But I think as you find these smaller things, $4,000 is $4,000. What do? You can't leave it, so.
So am I hearing that we need to have a
Ms.
study?
Kaminsky?
1 second, am I hearing that we need to have a study session to talk about a dollar amount on change orders?
I mean, it's gotta be a pretty large dollar amount, so, yeah, I mean.
I guess,
Mrs. Janoon?
that's not even exactly what I'm saying. My thing is this, I understand what Mrs. Berry's saying, but I'm also understanding that if Scott and his team is overseeing it, so are we saying that they are overseeing it and they're,
100%.
okay, so my husband, like Mrs. Kaminsky's husband, is also a licensed plumber, and I was kind of just like, and it made sense to him. Initially, when I phrased it to him, he was like, that doesn't make sense, but then when so he's also understands that that does happen and it does need to be changed. And I, like Mr. Sabo saying, once you open up a wall, you are more than likely going to find it. In this situation, you're not gonna that's part of the whole bond, so that was part of the energy savings bond, so it's not like we can cut this part of the project out, so.
Mrs. Berry?
I guess my concern would be, down the road, what's going to happen if we're finding these issues now? I know that in the past we had, backup issues, but is this going to create more backup for us with this process going through in the phalanges and all that? I know that there's gonna be less water, right? It's more efficient, meaning less water. Does that mean that we're gonna have more backups?
No, so with the new energy water graded toilets, they use much less water than toilets from the
Okay.
past. When you replace the
Okay.
phalanges and you replace these toilets, it should decrease the number of backups because you have a more upgraded system through the plumbing lines. It pulls it down and all that good stuff. So that's the whole purpose behind this, is that this fix now should relieve a lot of our problems in the future. No pun intended.
Okay, I hope so. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next thing that I show, any other questions?
Nope.
Next thing I show is the associate superintendent updates.
So we're gonna request if we can go into closed session for
that?
this.
All right, can I skip that then, and let's go
Yeah.
to superintendent updates,
Mhm.
and then we'll go to closed session after.
Most definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you, board.
Do I stay on this, channel?
We're not gonna switch out just yet.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so for superintendent updates, there are two items on the superintendent update that I would like to have for discussion with the board today, two very important items. First, one is masks and one is the virtual program, and I'd like to go reverse order on this. I'd like to talk about the virtual program first, if that's okay, because that would be a little more quick.
Sure.
So, in the last couple of weeks, I've updated the board on the possible virtual program, and then we were able to finalize a virtual program. We sent out surveys to parents. We gave parents 8 days to complete the surveys for families that wished to have a virtual option. We were very clear in the directions. It was sent out in English and in Arabic. We were very clear in the direct options that this is a full-year commitment, and that through this virtual programming, students would be, parents have to be involved, number one, and number two, when teachers will schedule for parents to bring their children for testing, because we can't go to the homes for testing. At the end of the survey, there was a checkbox that every parent had to check off that had, I agree to, and there were several things. These are things that we learned from last year. Like, these were things we knew that we needed parents to agree to. One of the things we needed parents to agree to is that children are online every day. It's a regular school day. So if your school day starts at 8:30, you start at 8:30 online, so on and so forth. So we've put together a virtual program where we are going to be using a third-party support system called Edgenuity for our kindergarten through 5th grade, not including 4th grade. We have a elementary teacher who will be teaching our 4th grade specifically. And we are bringing in 3 mentor teachers to work with those families, kindergarten, 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and 5th grade. These 3 teachers are going to be highly qualified in elementary education, and they're going to be the mentors for these children. So they work with them in Edgenuity, they're part of it, they support them, and they support the parents. We have our 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade are going to be self-contained classrooms, and we have 3 teachers from the district who will be running those courses. In our high school, we have a English language arts teacher, a math teacher, a social studies teacher, and those 3 who are going to be teaching those core content areas, and we're going to be using Michigan Virtual for our science electives, our science needs. We use Michigan Virtual currently, and so we have a good relationship with them. And the 3 teachers that will be working in the high school will be supporting the students with that Michigan Virtual as well. In order to help students with social emotional learning, as well as not having too much screen time, we are substituting specials and electives for no screen time, as well as SEL, social emotional learning. This was a common practice used by many schools last year when they went to full virtual. Originally, we thought we would have to hire 7 additional teachers to make this program run. We will only have to hire 5. Okay. When you look at cost differential, we are able to run this program very productively, and it will cost us approximately $600,000. Which we can use ESSER funding and other grant funds to support this, because it is supporting the COVID-19 virtual component. So we have other funds available to support this. Additionally, some people may ask, well, what's going to happen with these teachers that you hire? Well, currently, just Friday, I didn't check the numbers today, but on Friday, we're up to 4,005 students in our district, not including Divine Child students. So our numbers are growing. Plus, with the classrooms we're building in our 3 elementary schools, hopefully, we're going to need to fill those classrooms as well. And we'll be able to reduce class size in elementary from 28, 29 students, hopefully down to 25, 26. So it's cost effective for 2 years. It's financially feasible. It's not going to hurt our bottom line, and it's going to help the families that did choose virtual. We had approximately 6.5% of our student population, which is about 305 students, elect virtual K-12. And Mr. Radwan Awada, he is going to be the administrator in charge of virtual learning, so that parents, students, and staff all have one person to work with. So he'll be working that virtual program himself. And that's going to be very helpful, because not only is he going to be doing that, but that's also going to help with the social emotional piece and creating connections for our students and teachers. We feel that this program is going to meet the needs of our students much more than last year's program did. Moreover, this is going to be a two-way communication virtual program. This is not going to be like last year where it's one day on, one day off, hybrid type of deal. This is every day, two-way communication, every day on the computer working through lessons. And Edunity has lessons and workbooks set up for elementary curriculum that is based on the Common Core state standards. And that's why the mentor teachers are necessary to help the students through and to help parents. Students with special needs will still receive all of the requirements of their individual education plans, their IEPs. And again, as I said, if students need social work support, school psychology support, restorative practices support, that is all going to be made available to them via virtual learning. So our goal is, one piece is Edunity has a professional development program that our teachers have to go through. So we are finalizing all that documentation so that we can get that PD done this week. And we're hoping that by midweek this week, all of the students who are going to be in the virtual program will be contacted by either their teacher and or someone from the program. In the very beginning, Mr. Awada, Mrs. Baydoun, and Mr. Fabris, all three will be supporting the process. And then as the process gets going and things start getting systemized, then Mr. Awada is going to take the lead moving there. We just want to, we're doing everything, we're using the resources we have now as a district to make this as positive as possible. So that's where we are with the virtual program.
Thank you. Any
Ms.
questions?
Kaminsky, if I may?
Yep, I do.
Mrs. Fawaz, then Mrs. Berry.
So for the students that choose virtual, if they do choose virtual, like last year, they're committed to it for the entire year. There's no going back and forth, right?
Correct.
And then for elementary students, it obviously makes sense. They have one teacher. They go through all the programs. Is that going to be the same thing for high school, or do they, for the high school, would they have like a history teacher, math teacher? Like, is it going to affect any of their selections that they would have had they been face-to-face? Like, would they still be able to get the same type of offerings for the classes?
Yes, so K-8 is all self-contained, so it'll be one teacher, and they'll be supporting one another. 9-12 is gonna be just like a high school day. Now that we went from trimester to semester, students have 6 periods now, not 5. So they will have 4 for sure, which is their ELA, math, science, and social studies. And then the students that like choose an AP class, well, we don't have an AP teacher teaching it, but they'll be put in Michigan virtual, which is what we currently do for students who want an AP class, but it doesn't fit their schedule. So this Michigan virtual piece in our high school is something that we currently do, which we were going to continue doing if we were in this situation or not, because, you know, we have a lot of students who want to take advanced classes, and we don't offer enough sometimes because we don't have enough teachers. So the students that need, and usually in those situations, you'll have 5 or 6 kids that will be in an AP virtual, Michigan virtual class. And that's going to be the same thing with this program.
And this wouldn't affect dual enrollment students, right?
Correct. So the dilemma that these students are going to have for dual enrollment, though, because this is out of our purview, is if they wish to have a dual enrollment class, but they want to be virtual, then they're going to have to find a dual enrollment class that's virtual at the college. We're not going to find it for them because that's out of our purview, you know. So that's something that the students will be, you know, it will be discussed with those students.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Mrs.
welcome.
Berry.
Yes, I just wanted to thank the team for putting that together and making it equitable for the ones that did not want to be in person, because I know that was a big taking, you know, for you guys to take that on. And I'm happy to hear about the mentors, that the families will have the connection to somebody within the Crestwood district that will be able to follow through on them. And I know that Mr. Awada will do a fantastic job with the families. So thank you for putting all that together and making it equitable for everyone that wanted virtual.
You're welcome, and thank you for your support in this process.
Of course.
Mr. Sabah?
Yeah, I'd like to reiterate what Mrs. Berry said. This is a mountain of a feat, and I don't think people realize how strenuous it is to get, to accommodate parents that are still concerned, rightfully concerned. I do have a question. You did bring up the buildings, and one of the Friday updates, I don't know if this is the time for it or not, but I'm gonna ask the question anyway. I know when the architect's firm was out, we talked about building up, and in some of the notes that I saw, it was too costly, we don't know if we could do it or not. I think the question was more around, are we able to build up on what you're going to build, more so than, are we able to build up on the old facilities?
Oh, I apologize.
That's okay, I just wanted to make sure I clarified that so that we can get an answer to that. That's what I had asked them when they were here.
Okay.
If you're adding 4 new classrooms, is it possible to make sure that the infrastructure is there in case we need to add 4 more onto a second floor? I knew that the older buildings weren't gonna be able to hold a second floor, but I wanna make sure that they're building the footings for this new facility. And she said, when she was here, that this is something they were gonna look into and see if it's possible based on the ground. So if we can get clarity on that, that would be great,
Of course.
okay?
Good point, thank you.
Very good point, thank you, yeah, and I just put that in my notes specifically.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, at this time, I need a motion to go into closed session.
Wait, one more, the
Oh, I'm
masks.
sorry.
Sorry.
Dr. Lazar.
Oh,
No,
okay.
not yet. I'm still on the hot seat. So the other item, board, and, this is a topic of discussion nationally. This is not something that's just a topic of discussion here at the Crestwood Schools. In our superintendent's meeting, it was a topic of discussion for a good hour, and everyone was just talking about the pros and the cons, and for every pro, there's a con, for every con, there's a pro. And the discussion is on masks. And the conversation I'd like the board to consider is, where do we move with masks? Currently, the CDC and the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services strongly recommend masks. We have, and I will say this because I don't care, we have been asking the state officials to give us a decision. We are educators, okay? We're educators, we're businessmen and women, we're not epidemiologists. But we're also looking at what is in the best interest for our entire district, for every child that comes to our school, for every staff member. So I gave all board members, and President Barry, I don't know if you saw your email.
I did,
Good,
thank
excellent.
you.
You're welcome. So currently, our county is at risk level D. E is the worst risk level. And on the first page, I put in there how they identify that. This is directly from the CDC and the University of Michigan Health Systems websites. And the level is driven by new cases. The worst 7-day period in prior 2 weeks was August 5th to August 11th, with an average of 124.3 daily cases per million population, which was above the threshold of 70 for risk level D. Additionally, I also submitted to the board the current daily positivity test rates. And as you look at the information, I tried to break this down as simple as possible, just so you could reference it quickly. You see, in July, we weren't having this conversation. In early August, we really didn't have this conversation. But in the last 2.5 weeks, this conversation has taken storm. If you see, on July 7th, we were a rating of A, which was 1.7% positivity rate. As of August 19th, our daily positivity test rate is 6.4%. Our 7-day average is 7.4%. So you're looking at, in 1 month, almost a 5 to 6% increase in daily positive test rates. If you look at the next page, it's daily cases per million in Wayne County. Again, if you look at July 8, there were 18. If you look at August 19, this is per million. If you look at August 19th, it's 78 per million, with 112 7-day average per million. So you see an increase there. And we're still at, and that's where it led us to the ranking of a D. Death rates, thank God, have stayed low, but it's still, something we have to keep in mind. August 19th, there were 0, thank God, and hopefully there are 0 continuing. On the 7-day average, there was 1. But to help make this information look even a little more understandable, if you go to the next page, this is directly from the CDC website, and this is for the state of Michigan. On August, this is hospitalizations. So on August, so if you look in July 9th, there was 1 hospitalization per million in Michigan, and then on August 14th, there was 4.9 hospitalizations per million. This is overall, this is all age groups. If you go to the next page, then we break it down for you by age group. For the age group of 18 to 49, it's 1.2 per million, and then 0 for under 18. I mean, thank God. But then you got 2.5 for 18 to 49, and then 0.8 for under 18. So when you look at the different groups, you see the changes. And then on the next page, you have hospitalizations for the elderly, which is 50 to 64. You have 50 to 64, you have 6.4 currently, and 15.4 for 65 and older. And then in July, it was 2 for 65 and older and 1.3 for 50 to 64. So the trend here is that in July, we were all optimistic and we thought everything could go back to normal. We were going to continue our COVID protocols, so on and so forth. But now the conversations on masks comes into hand. Currently, as I said, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services has strongly recommended and has been urging the governor's office to make a decision for schools. Michigan Department of Health and Human Services are arguing that schools should mask so that we can keep this trend low and allow this trend to go away. In conversation with Trustee Al-Zayat made a very good point that I would like to share with the board, which is something she said in the past, and it makes a lot of sense. Currently with the Delta variant, every variant or the virus itself, because now we have over 50%, 60% inoculation, takes 60 days to run through the 60 days to run through the population. Trustee Al-Zayat mentioned that the second week of September, we will have hit that 60-day mark. So there is a good possibility that after that 60-day mark, numbers could go down. My recommendation to the board is that being that we're going back to school next week, and if this is the case, that we can see a downturn come the second week, mid-September, that we continuously reassess the masking. And I recommend that we do mandate masking for all students and all staff in the Crestwood schools, because currently, as we are sitting here as a board, we're 6 feet of separation, so we are following the mandates. For schools, it's recommended that there's 3 feet of separation with masks. This allows us to have school. If we go into the school year with masks as a mandate and reassess every board meeting, and we see our numbers going down, and we see our rating go from D down to a C down to a B, we can always reassess. My concern, board, and I know we can go back and forth, but my concern is I'm afraid to see an uptake in our schools if we don't mandate masks, especially at the beginning of the school year.
Thank you, Dr. Masalam, and I know that this is a hot topic and that we all have our own opinions on this. So I'm going to ask each board member to discuss how they feel on it and then do some Q&A on it. So, Mrs. Fawaz.
Okay, thank you. Personally, I have mixed feelings. I'm not gung-ho one way or the other. I understand not wearing it 100%, I understand wearing it 100%. But for the safety of everyone, and we can't, I think it's just easier and we'd remain consistent to just have everyone wear it. So my personal opinion, I think we just go 100% mask and like you said, reevaluate every meeting or every 30 days. And if it's getting better, then, we just, we can make it optional. But right now, I mean, you heard callers from the last meeting. We're going to end up going virtual like we did last year if, it does go through the school and all these kids end up getting it. And, and it's not approved for 12 and under, even though I know that's not the big population getting it anyway. So my opinion is I agree with Dr. Massam. I would go 100% for now and just reevaluate as necessary.
Thank you. I'm gonna go down the line. Mrs. Janin.
So my question is, we gave everybody the option of virtual with the idea that we were offering, or masks were going to be strongly recommended, but as an option to the students and the staff. We closed that option out prior to hearing parents' concerns, prior to telling people, well, we're gonna mandate masks now. I know for a fact that we have parents who have children that are strongly against, or are not even able to wear them. Forget being against it, forget the political side of it, that their kids struggle with wearing it. So now that we have that virtual option is closed out, now what do we do for those kids? We wanted to accommodate everybody when it came to not attending school. What do we do to the kids that don't want to wear the mask and those families? Now we have to open that. Are we opening it back up to those families that don't want to send their kids to school because they have to wear a mask? I feel like if we were going to make that decision, we probably should have discussed it prior to closing out the virtual option. I feel like we've put ourselves in a little bit of a situation here.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Saban.
Madam President, would you like me to respond, or do you want to go through?
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just gonna say, the purpose of the survey was for people that had a fear to send their children to school because of COVID.
Right.
That was the purpose of the survey. The purpose of the survey, and I understand where you're coming from, not
Yeah.
disagreeing with you, but the purpose of the survey wasn't what is gonna be most comfortable for your child. And I understand that, but my whole thing is, we have to look at this from a two-pronged approach in referencing to the survey. The survey was more for fear of COVID. If we evaluate the mask option every 2 weeks and the numbers go down, then it can go from a mandate to strongly recommended. Moreover, what I can say is this: if we see that it's not changing, we as a team can expand that virtual learning possibility by expanding the virtual for those that are struggling with the mask. But what we need to do, and what I truly believe, is we got to get this thing rolling to see how people are going to adjust.
So what about those families whose children, let's just say from the parents' perspective, who don't want to send their kids to school in a mask? And I'm separating the political, because we already know that both sides have played a role in how this is played out. But there are families who are completely against mandating it for the younger kids. Whether or not you feel, or we feel, that a decision was made based on the safety of the children in regards to wearing the mask, there are those families whose kids can't wear one. I mean, they just can't wear one. So what do we do with those kids?
And again, I understand, and that is something that as we continue and we go through, we can adjust. If we have a large number of families who are struggling with the masks when school starts, we can look at our staffing and adjust. I will be honest, Trustee Janoon, and to the entire board. It is very difficult to run the virtual program because of staffing. And we were able to make it work because of the numbers that we had. I will say this: if our numbers double, there is no way we can run the virtual program.
And I understand. That's why I just feel more strongly. I spent the entire day here. I was here from 7 o'clock to 3 o'clock. I watched families coming in. I watched families who, no matter what, their kids were wearing their masks when they entered the building, and they were taking their pictures. But I also watched the opposite. So there's no right answer,
Yeah,
and I 100%, I'm very grateful that we moved forward with allowing the virtual option, because I do know that there are children who cannot be in the building for various reasons due to, what's going on. I'm not against it, but I also feel like I have to speak my mind
Yeah,
in
no,
regards
no,
to.
no, no, we totally understand. No, 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 no.
And I'm
I just-
sorry,
I just wanted the community to understand why we went that route.
We wouldn't be able to accommodate them if we.
And we will continuously, like we did last year, and as we've done this year, we will continuously assess and see how we can make adjustments. And I think the one thing that we have showed everyone is that we can adjust on the fly as needed. It's just, we need to have a starting point. And the dilemma that we're facing is, if we don't have this starting point, we don't have the staff to support those that want to be face-to-face. And if the number of virtual numbers go up, we don't have the staff to
So
support
what
that.
do we do if a child comes in is not wearing a mask?
If a child comes in and is not wearing a mask, they will be reminded to wear a mask. And they will be reminded to wear a mask. That's what we can do.
Will we provide masks?
We will have masks available, yes. Oh, and there will be mask breaks. I'm sorry, trustee Sabo, my apologies.
No, you're fine.
One thing I do want to add, when we talk about mask mandate, currently we don't have our masks on because we are at 6 feet of separation. And, so that's, according to CDC guidelines, we're okay. Certain situations, the students will be able to take their masks off if they're in a room where they all can be 6 feet apart from one another. If they're outside and they're not engaged or intertwined, there are mask breaks. There are opportunities for them to do that. Now, if they're in a classroom of 28 students and they're at 3 feet of separation, then we're going to say, please put your mask on. And I will tell you, the high school has already developed a new hallway system and a new student flow system where the students go in between classes and stuff to help alleviate a lot of that overcrowding. So when we talk about masks, I want everyone to understand, it's when you're in the hallway changing classes, or you're in a classroom where you can only be 3 feet apart. But if you can be 6 feet apart, then you can take that mask off, and the teachers can have that conversation. We're gonna follow the CDC guidelines and expectations, and there will be mask breaks, and there will be different things that we will do. I don't want anyone to think that it's going to be, this mask is gonna be tied to your face, and you're not gonna have an opportunity to take it down and to breathe and so on and so forth. I do want to mention that, so my apologies.
No problem, thank you. Let's try again.
No, you're fine, thank you. There's just so many thoughts going through everybody's mind. And I just, I heard trustee Janoon talking about this is not political. Our children are not a political debate. This is a health crisis. Having said that, I know a lot of people out, a lot of people out there are going to agree and or disagree with what I'm going to say. I'm going to speak as a parent first. I want my children to wear a mask. I'm also going to speak as a trustee. This may not be the most popular comment. I don't think other children have to be forced to wear a mask. And the reason I say that is because there are parents, and I've heard from parents, that say my child cannot wear this, right? It restricts my child. I think there are special circumstances where we have children with certain health issues that we have to pay attention to, and those should be brought, right, to the board, or I'm sorry, to the district and to the administration. We should be made aware of those. I just have a problem telling every parent your child must walk into the building wearing a mask, whether they like it or not, Again, we are in a health crisis. I'm not debating this, right? It's not political. This is a health crisis. But I'm looking at the numbers, right? It's kind of falling in line with what we've always dealt with. It's the 65 plus that are the problem. I'm more concerned, not that the health of the children is not a concern, because it's the ultimate concern for me. The teachers, right? And I think that's where some of this confusion is going to come in for a lot of us, is we've got teachers that are concerned. What's the right answer? Do we separate the room into two portions, not without alienating kids? And saying, if you don't want to wear a mask, we have to put you back here and we have to put you 6 feet apart. But if you do wear a mask, you can sit within 3 feet of each other. Do we put partition glass around that desk? I don't know. All I'm saying is, I think if we mandate this, and I understand you're talking about a span of 2 weeks, right? We're talking about Delta now. There's going to be Lambda. There's going to be another one. I hate to say this, and I hate to sound like the you know, the negative person, but I mean, I don't even watch TV anymore because it's heart-wrenching. You know, I don't want to hear what's coming next anymore. It's because these children are paying the price, but I'm just looking at the numbers, and I'm looking at the age ranges, right? I have a child that has a health issue that concerns me if he caught COVID, and I'm speaking as a parent. But I want to be open-minded enough for those parents that say, hey, don't force my child to wear a mask because I don't want him to, or they don't need to. I think there has to be more discussion on this than for us to say, yes, you're going to do it. We've also got data. We've got data for other school districts around the country that have opened up. I know Texas is a disaster right now, right? It's a disaster more so for the adults than it is for the children, though. The Texas schools have opened up. They've been open. Ohio's been open. Illinois has been open. A lot of the states around us are open. Why don't we get data from that? And to Ms. Janoon's point, and I know this is really hard to say and to do. It's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's an uphill battle. For me to say this to parents, and I know you were talking about you're concerned with COVID, keep your kid at home, keep them on virtual, that's okay. By the way, we just did that. Now we're going to implement a mask policy, but you can't go back in and change your mind. By the way, you may not want to change your mind because if you put them in virtual, you're there for the entire school year. But I think that should still be an option for some. I don't think you're going to get many that'll take it still. I really don't. But I just don't want to shut too many doors to these parents because I think they have the right to get all the information before making a decision. And I think they have the right to choose whether or not their child is going to wear a mask. And I know that's not a popular comment. Again, I'm of those parents that think, yes, you should wear a mask, but I don't want to take that right away from them. And that's not a political answer.
No.
I'm just being honest because of the feedback I've received from these parents.
And I appreciate your sincerity and honesty. Mrs. Berry?
On a positive note, I was fortunate enough to work summer school, and I worked with young kids. Guess what? They all wore masks. The parents never complained. The children never complained. They went into the cafeteria. They knew when they could take their mask off, you know, to eat, when to put it back on. I don't want to take that away from parents, but we have to do what's best for all. We have to make sure that we protect everybody. We're talking about staff. We're talking about students. I think at this point that it shouldn't be an option, that we need to mandate it because, yes, I am watching the numbers and they are going up with the younger children. Actually, we did have a couple of children that I knew that were hospitalized for it. So is it a concern? Yes, it is. And yes, I would like this to get mandated until we watch these numbers and see where we are and hope and pray that things turn around. But for now, I want to do what's best for everybody and make sure that we protect everyone. Thank you.
I appreciate that. While we were in this meeting, I happen to know some pulmonologists, both at Beaumont and at Providence. One of the doctors who's in charge of the Providence Pulmonary and Respiratory and ICU did answer me, and I asked him, can you shed some light? I'm at a school board meeting regarding COVID ICUs and vents. And he wrote back, this is Dr. Wasim Farah. If you mean how many ICUs patients are COVID positive, currently Providence is less than 5%. However, we have vented patients in the pulmonary unit at about 90% that are COVID positive. And then he wrote, it's trending up and the ages are trending down. So I don't have specifics. He was kind enough to reply. Having said that, I'm not a physician, I'm not an educator, but I am a trustee, and I feel that as a trustee, we have to make sometimes unpopular decisions. As a parent, if my children were still in school, they would be wearing a mask. I think that to protect all the kids and the staff at this point for the next few weeks, I'm in favor of going, mandating masks and reevaluating after this time. This is something we're gonna have to add to the agenda and vote on later. I just wanted everyone to have time to speak their piece on it. get out their feelings, and, you know, this is not something that we're going to make everybody happy, and we know that. And, administration knows that, and we're just trying to do what everyone thinks is best for the kids. So, having said that, thank you for the information, I appreciate it, and that's all I have.
And if
Actually, one
I
more
may,
thing.
Pres-
Even if we had decide, or do decide not to wear a mask, we physically could not, have all these kids 6 feet apart here and not masks, right?
it would, yeah,
We physically could not do that,
we can do the 3 feet, which is the current CDC recommendations, but the 6 feet, no.
right?
Is it impossible to give these, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
is it impossible to add more recess breaks if you're gonna do this?
Oh, we can, that's just the whole thing, is the teachers have that autonomy to create a process within their classroom to allow for mask breaks. You know, we can do that. And the other thing is, we will devise a way, we will figure it out, on how to look at, if the board decides to say that we're one way or the other, we will devise a way to identify possible opportunities for additional virtual learning that will be feasible. It just may take time. And that's why I say I would, no matter what decision the board makes, we will support. And I think the key and crucial thing to keep in mind here is that we reevaluate every board meeting.
Correct.
And it's on the agenda every board meeting. And we look at the data every board meeting. And we get feedback from parents and staff, and we use that. My biggest thing is to start the school year. That's where my biggest concern is to start the school year.
No, and I understand, Dr. Masalam. Mr. Noon,
I know we can go around and around and around. I guess I still have a lot of concerns about it, I really do. I know Mrs. Berry was saying she was in preschool, and the kids were doing, I hate to say this, sometimes the little ones are probably better at following those directions than the middle school and high schoolers, and I feel like, you know, I had somebody who said that she worked with, hazmat stuff, and she always had to wear a mask, and it worked properly, and I said, but you were somebody who, you're familiar with the process of wearing it, and the safety that goes along with it, and not touching your mask, because once you touch your mask, you contaminate your mask, and so sometimes the mask, so, again, we're not gonna make everybody happy. Do I know that there are things that need to be done? Yes, I'm not for making it an across the board, I hate to say that,
I understand, Mrs. Janoon, and, you know,
And-
trust me, I don't think it's a simple answer
No, and again,
at
I
all.
feel like cutting off the virtual without giving somebody the option of, it's just,
Wasn't intentional.
no,
Yeah.
not at all, not even, but I also understand that it was done that way because it kind of had to be done that way too. So again, we're not gonna make everybody happy, and it's not gonna be,
Correct.
yeah.
The one thing I do want to remind our audience is our regular meeting starts at 7, and this is an open meeting, so we can have guests here. So if you feel a need, you want to speak your opinion, I invite you to come to the meeting at 7.
Is that gonna be before or
They
after
can
we
still
vote?
call in.
Can I, I'm sorry, Mrs. Kaminsky, if I can make one more comment?
Go ahead.
I just did text my nephew. He is working in the ER out at, anyways, it's quite a ways from here for DMC, but out. And he said, these are his exact words, he said, young people dying, the Delta variant is different. They look different, their skin feels different, they're dying so quickly. They are overwhelmed in the ER rooms. Every single one that comes in deteriorates quickly. So I'm just telling you what he's telling me. He's dealing with it on a daily basis. He's doing 28-hour shifts. He's overwhelmed. They're getting burned out. These are the things that I hear that scare me. And that's why I would like to see everybody protected. Okay, thank you.
Yep, and I will let the public also know that there will not be call-ins at this meeting, so Again, I encourage you to come to our meeting at Riverside School if you have an opinion or a question that you want to ask the board at our 7 o'clock meeting. Having said that, do I have a motion to go into closed session to discuss contracts?
So moved.
Thank you. A second, please?
Support?
Thank you. And it is 6:39. All those in, or any discussion? All those in favor, please?
Aye.
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 Oh, aye, sorry.
Okay. All right, so we will be going into a closed session. We will resume our study session after, basically just to end our study session, and then we will go into our private, or our regular meeting at 7 o'clock. So thank you very much, and we're going to be going into closed session now.
And Madam President, Ms. Berry, Trustee,
Yes.
Madam President Berry, you can stay on the link that you're on currently.
Okay.